What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Football Chatbox. My name is Ryan, and today there's no Game Week 13 podcast for this week, but instead of that, I am going to show to you in this video the Game Week 13 South, the Game Week discussion that I had with Mira FPL Mez. We covered Game Week 13 fixtures and also discussed in terms of like our picks and players that we're looking at with the whole fixture crunch coming in December with so many game weeks as well. So have a look. Hope you all enjoyed. And having said all of that, also, if you're new, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let's get straight in to the video. Hi there, and welcome to Scout the Game Week. It's Game Week 12 has just completed, and obviously we're looking ahead to Game Week 13. I'm your host, Ryan from Football Chatbox, and this week I'm joined by the amazing FPL Mez Mira, who's killing it, I would say. Probably having one of her best seasons, if not her best season at the moment, I think. Mira, how are you doing?
I think so. Hi Ryan, so great to be on again. I think so. I had a really good finish in my second season, but I wasn't where I am now. I finished this game week about 3.3k, and I wasn't this rank until maybe game week 35 in my second season. Finishing the season at 2.5k. So I feel like I've peaked a little bit early, but it's just a different challenge, I guess, going into the upcoming fixture crunch as well.
So what do you think you've done different over like that season that you had a really good one and compared to now, or even like in the last couple compared to now?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So when I started playing FPL, like my first season obviously was, just a learning curve. I was learning about the game. But after that, I decided every season I'll play play in a slightly different way. And I like asking other managers that question as well. Like, has your style of play changed over the years, over the seasons, as you've matured as a FPL player as well? But this season, I think I've taken more risks a lot earlier. And like I played my triple captaincy on Haaland, which I think no one could dream of doing right now. But I played my triple captaincy on Haaland and just made some really ruthless transfers. Like I've taken out Havertz, brought him back in several times as well. I've not been holding on to players longer than I probably should. So I've just been taking advantage of how many transfers we can roll and try and sort of, only plan 2 or 3 game weeks ahead as well. Like last season, I spent too long trying to plan ahead. And that didn't help me. And then when things went wrong, I wasn't able to course correct as quickly. So I'm trying to stay as nimble as possible and not sort of get drawn into too many bandwagons as well.
Okay, fair enough. Now, obviously, Game Week 13 fixture is coming up, and then there is a midweek fixture as well happening the following week. So we're getting straight into the whole December crunch of fixtures. This is where I guess seasons are made and broken potentially. And obviously we're going to be needing a very good bench as well. I'm looking at your team, and obviously you're about to have some money to spend from the looks of it. So we'll get straight in, obviously, to Game Week 13 fixtures, but let's start with the last fixture. Liverpool versus Manchester City. I don't know if this is a big game anymore,
I don't know.
One team is on top of the form ticker, the other team it's almost in relegation form in the last 5 games.
I don't know. I think at this rate, I think I was listening to, I can't remember what I was listening to or which thread I was reading, but someone mentioned something about, at this rate, City will barely, be able to qualify for the UCL next season. Look, I think it's always going to be a tough fixture for Liverpool. I think Liverpool's just absolutely killing it right now. And we've had such a good start to the season. Arne Slot's been, phenomenal as well. Salah's been crazy on form. We won't talk about his contract at all. That's a whole other, problem and issue that, obviously Liverpool are dealing with. And there'll be a lot of distractions around that as well going into the UCL fixture. But I would say that the fixture against City is probably probably the most important fixture for them in this next week or so, because obviously after that we've got Newcastle going into the midweek fixture. So I think it's a really big game. Like in terms of beating City will be a huge statement as well. That's the first sort of fixture, against City for this season. And I think if we can get that leg up against City, go 11 points clear on the top of the table as well, it's just looking really good. It should be a little bit more smoother as well. But we're then going into a very intensive, fixture crunch as well that Liverpool have, with a bit of travel in between, and just subsequent sort of game weeks, or game weeks, and then European fixtures as well. So it's going to be tough, but I think it's a really important one. So we're going to need to go gung ho on it.
Yeah, it's a big week, right? Because you have Real Madrid this week, who are also struggling in the Champions League. You could to some extent, not really, but they badly need to win this game. Otherwise, they're going to be in big trouble come the last few games of the UCL. And then
I
obviously
agree.
City after that. So two big games, one big game and one who knows what will happen type game on the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're just going to need to capitalize on the momentum side of things, right? So if Real Madrid are not playing very well, like, it's not sort of giving them an inch to, make progress against us. And it's going to be the same with City as well. Like, they're really, really hamstrung, in the midfield. And we just have to take advantage of that. And I think Slot knows that as well. I think the team knows that as well. We've just been playing, really well, albeit you could argue that the match against Southampton wasn't as great. I mean, obviously that was an away fixture as well. But, I'd like to think that they were probably taking it a little bit easier, like, not that they could afford to. I mean, maybe they can afford to, but maybe they were taking it a little bit easier as well in terms of acceleration in that game, given that they've got Real Madrid coming up this week, and of course the big match against City on Monday or on Sunday.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, to be honest, I'm the way the Southampton game went as the Salah captain, I'm kind of happy because I was a bit worried that early sub and whatnot, but it didn't happen. And so the way it went, I think, as an FPL perspective, I think it couldn't have gone any better. Maybe it could have gone better if didn't take his shirt off and could have scored the one on the post. But yeah.
Oh my gosh, I know. But at the same time, I was thinking from an FPL perspective, right? Like, I think he was like 179% or something like that around my rank. And so I was like, well, this is not going to make that much of a difference. It's probably going to be, a couple of hundred places for me, that kind of thing. So I was like, oh yeah, whatever. Do your thing, Salad. It's okay.
Fair enough. For me, I'll take every point that he can. Now, obviously, I said at the start, you have cash to spend. And if anyone didn't get the hint, you have Haaland, or you had Haaland. Has he left?
He hasn't left. He hasn't left my team yet. One of the things I've been doing a bit more of this season as well is being patient with my transfers and not jumping on the price, increases and drops as well, especially when there's midweek games, going on. I mean, the players I'm thinking about bringing in will probably be okay. They're not playing midweek at the moment, but I just didn't want to take any risk either. So we've got a really awkward time for the deadline over here in Australia. I think it's like 5:30 in the morning or something like that on Saturday. So I'll probably be locking in on Friday and making my transfers on Friday night over here. So so I haven't taken him out yet, but I'm still scouting which forward to bring in.
Okay, let's talk about forwards now. Haaland replacements. I think there are at least 4 forwards that everyone kind of wants, and which combination you get is up to you. But I think Isak, Jackson, Cunha, and Joao Pedro.
Yeah.
And nice. Anyone else after that, I guess, is just like a punt at this moment.
I think so. I think like Watkins sort of hit my radar a little bit as well, but I think their UCL sort of journey puts me off a little bit, and he's not been on full firing form as well. But maybe the fixtures could be better. I mean, they do turn. I mean, Villa's got obviously they've got Chelsea coming up, but then they've got Brentford and Southampton at home as well, after that as well. So, there are some good fixtures there. I wouldn't say the easiest, but Watkins is Watkins as well. Like, he's not really picked up form. So that's the other thing I've been doing this season, just going a little bit early on some of the picks. Like, I brought in Cunha game week 8 against City, and I knew that he probably wasn't going to do much against, City, but it was just a really good opportunity. So I brought him in. But I think, aside from that list that you just shared, I'm not really thinking about any other forwards. So I've already got Cunha and I've already got Joao Pedro in my team. So I guess I'm eyeing up Isak, I'm eyeing up Jackson and Watkins as the sort of, the third outside sort of option there. Leaning towards Isak at the moment, but also trying not to sort of get sucked into recency bias. Obviously, Newcastle just lost against West Ham, which was a bit of a shock and a surprise, given West Ham have not been playing very well. Newcastle are at home. Obviously, there were chances there. Isaac had an opportunity, but didn't quite make it, unfortunately. But that should have been a win game, for Newcastle as well. And then we saw Wilson come on as well. So yeah, I'm not saying that Wilson is going to take minutes away from Isak, but there's always going to be the chance that, he might sort of, Isak might get sort of substituted, I don't know, 80 minutes, that kind of thing. Obviously, he came on with Isak this time round because they were, attacking and they needed to, score some goals against West Ham. But yeah, so I'm slightly leaning towards Isak just being the more clinical finisher and on pens as well, at least, as we understand it. But Jackson's just looking really good. And I think Chelsea are just playing in a different way. So, they're going all out, attacking as well. And they've just got a bit more, I don't know, I think they seem well put together at the moment. Although you could argue, Palmer wasn't too great. He was my transfer in for game week 12. But yeah, it's definitely going to be between Isak and Jackson for me.
Okay, fair enough. Now I've had Isaac and Cunha, and this week I've already taken like a hit and everything whatnot because I've been chasing rank. So Joe
Yeah.
Pedro has made it into my team as well. So I've got
Oh,
3 out of
brilliant.
the 4. Obviously Jackson is not there, but I've had Palmer as well. So kind of covered in Chelsea in one way. Obviously Palmer could have scored if not for Madueke, entering right in
Yes.
front of the goal. So that's a different conversation. But yeah, so those are the 3 I've got. But then again, like I said, again, it's like depends on which combination you have because all 4 are very likely to score, and sometimes you're going to miss out.
Absolutely. And so when you picked Isak, who else were you considering? Was sort of Jackson part of the equation?
No, so when I did the transfer, it was when I was removing Haaland. So I bought in
Okay.
Cunha and Isak. That was about 3 game weeks ago. And I
Okay.
think that
Yeah. So
was
it made sense, to go Isak at the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And he's returned in those couple game weeks except for this
Yeah.
week. So it's worked out for me. The reason I mean I could have gone for Jackson as well because Chelsea's fixtures weren't too bad. The only reason I was slightly against it was that pending 5th yellow card potentially. And I was like, yeah, okay, let me go and get a player who's not very close to getting suspended at the moment. That's kind of why I went that way.
Yeah, see, that's been on my mind as well. The 4 yellow cards does put me off. However, at the same time, I look at Chelsea's fixtures and I think, whoa, there's so much opportunity here. And if I have to just settle on a 3 sort of, playing forwards, Jackson, I would be okay to bench so long as João Pedro is getting the minutes as well. And so, so this would probably give me an opportunity to bring in a Arsenal, midfielder. And it also means that I'd be benching Rodgers as well. So, I've got slightly cheaper enablers in my team already. So I've had Dibbling in my team and I've had Rodgers in my team. And ideally, I wouldn't have, both of them. And so I get this opportunity taking out Haaland, bringing in a Saka or an Odegaard or something like that. But it does mean that I've got the opportunity to play Rodgers if Jackson does get his 5th yellow, which isn't ideal because they've got really good fixtures coming up, right? So yeah, I have to almost sort of suss out like when would I be okay with Jackson getting a yellow. So for example, Chelsea play Tottenham in game week 15, but Aston Villa have Southampton at home. So I would be benching Rodgers if I'm playing 3-4-3, but I could then play 3-5-2 if that was a scenario that comes up. But then they've got Brentford before that, like as in Villa, they've got Brentford in 14, they've got, Forest in 16. So those could be decent time. I just would not want it to happen in game week 17 because while Chelsea have Everton, Aston Villa's got City, so
Yes.
that's not ideal. So that's the only thing that I'm thinking about then. But then if you look at Newcastle's fixtures, Newcastle have got Ipswich in game week 17. They've got Leicester before that, Brentford before that. So yeah, this is why I'm definitely on the fence between those two options at the moment.
Yeah, I think whoever you go for, you're kind of going to be like missing out one way or the other on the other player. And I think the big question, obviously, because of everyone's choice in terms of midfield, comes down to Isak or Jackson at this point. And I guess, I don't know. If I go Jackson, I do obviously get one of the most attacking teams in the league in terms of Chelsea, and I have Palmer and Jackson coverage. But if I go and then obviously won't be carrying a single Newcastle attacker because I'm not going for any Newcastle midfielders. Whereas if I go Newcastle, have a tiny share of the pie in terms of their attack, and I obviously have a tiny share from Palmer as well from Chelsea attack. So I'm kind of covering both sides, but
yeah,
again, Chelsea are significantly better attacking team than Newcastle.
that's right.
So
yeah.
depends on
But
how
this is where the Brian Mbumo conversation comes in ever so slightly, right? So then I'm thinking, okay, game week 14 onwards, Brentford have slightly sort of trickier fixtures. I mean, you could argue that you could probably keep, Mbumo for a bit longer. He's not like a emergency transfer out or anything like that. I won't be rage transferring him out just yet. I just don't feel the need to. But I could bring in a Gordon at that point as well. So that's where that might be my way into the Newcastle attack, which isn't ideal because I'd be bringing in two non-penalty takers, right? Like I'd be bringing in Gordon and Jackson. It's not ideal. Ideally, it would be the other way around. Like I'd bring in Isak, but then who are the options for replacing Brian Mbumo? And so, yeah, so that's where I'm like, oh, who could I go to? I don't know if I would trust West Ham and go Bowen. I look at sort of, West Ham's fixtures and I think, yeah, it's not terrible. Like it's pretty good going from like game week 14. They've got Leicester, Wolves, Bournemouth, Brighton, Southampton up to 18. So that's not too bad. So you could, but I just haven't seen enough, and Bowen's not been consistent enough just yet. You could argue that they've had tougher fixtures, but yeah, I mean, we saw a different side to West Ham today, or this game
still should
week.
have been
Yeah.
hammered. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I'm thinking about while I'm making a decision about my forwards for game week 13,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about game week 14, 15 onwards for my midfield replacement for Brian Mbumo as well.
See, this is where I guess it depends on which midfield you have existing. Now, obviously, I have your team up as well. You've got Salah, Palmer, Bumo, Rogers, and Diblin.
Yeah.
And mine is, I've got Salah, Palmer, Embuemo, Rogers, and Garnacho. So it's Diblin versus Garnacho between the difference in terms of our midfield. Now I am looking at doing Embuemo to Saka instead. That's kind of where my replacement is happening. I could also do Garnacho to Saka. I haven't decided exactly where. But then again, there comes in the question, like you're saying, like who is that other fourth midfielder that you kind of want? I could keep Garnacho. Again, depends on the whole new system and whether he continues to play and whatnot. Or could go for Gordon. The other option could be a Brighton midfielder could step up as well. Now, obviously, they have a plethora of midfielders, which doesn't help. But maybe like a Mitoma, I don't know. That's a possibility. Minte, but yeah, Semenyo is also in the conversation. I guess you should probably put, but yeah.
Yeah, I would put Semenyo in the conversation as well. Yeah, absolutely, because Bournemouth have got really good fixtures coming up as well. So, I guess because I've got two enabling, I guess midfielders, right? Rogers is that for me. Like I'm trying not to look at his price tag and think, oh yeah, he's not that good, so I can just bench. He's been okay, but he's not been consistent either, right? And so I have to remind myself that he's a 5 mil midfielder. I'm not going to get that much from him. Dibbling looked all right against Liverpool, right? So Dibbling's okay as well. So I could take out Rogers or Dibbling or Brian Mbumo. You're not wrong there. and I'd be thinking about bringing in Saka, for example, right? So the money that frees up from Haaland gives me that option, but I can upgrade Dibbling to Saka. That's how much money it gives me, with at least 2 point something mil left in the bank still. And I would say that at the moment I've not really been focusing that much on my defense, which I probably should, because I've had some clean sheets, but not not a full house of clean sheets, I would say, from
Uh,
like my
I,
goalkeeper and 3 defenders.
I don't remember the last time anyone has had a full house of clean sheets. So, the rarity these days.
Oh, it's tough, isn't it? So I'm trying not to spend too much on my defense, basically. So I'm putting a little bit more emphasis on my attack. And so I think like taking Dibbling out, it means it gives me Salah, Palmer, Saka, Brian Mbumo, and then Rodgers in the midfield. And then up front, I could have Isaac, Cunha, and João Pedro as well. So with João Pedro being a bit of a minutes risk, potentially, especially as we go into the fixture crunch as well, I'm open to the idea of just upgrading Dibbling, because then I'm expecting my fifth or fourth midfield spot to be playing as well. So, I don't want to take out Mbumo unless I absolutely have to, because in game week 14 they're playing Villa, which isn't a terrible fixture either, because Villa's been letting in goals as well. And also noting that it's a midweek fixture, and Villa are not doing that well in the UCL anymore. I mean, they started off well, but they're not doing that well. So yeah, I think their squad depth is not as good as the likes of what we've got or what City have. Well, you could argue the other way with City at the moment, but Arsenal have got better squad depth as well, so they don't have that. So yeah, I'm tempted to just hold him for an extra week and just roll the transfer and work out who would be a good option to bring in the midfield for Brian Mbumo, but not a urgent transfer at that stage as well. So yeah, so I'd be giving up one of my enabler spots, I reckon.
Yeah, I think that's probably what's going to happen for me as well. Like, I'd probably most likely sell Garnacho first, then sell Embuemo. And then obviously, after a couple of weeks, I might even go back to like, because United's fixtures after City gets a bit more better again. And
Yes.
by then, you see a bit more of Amarin's
And we'll
idea.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
exactly.
should know. And I'm keen, as well, because again, like I don't mind bringing in a Garnacho in the midfield. I that could be a really good option. For example, unless someone else sort of emerges as
Yeah,
well. I'm not
exactly.
sure where Bruno's going to play or what's going on with Rashford as well. So yeah, I think there's plenty to see. But yeah, around that sort of Christmas time, going into the new year would be a good period to eye up and scope out what the options are with United again.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how obviously that plays out. But I guess in this whole conversation, we've touched on the likes of Brentford, Brighton, and covered those fixtures as well. Obviously Newcastle, we touched on Isak. Crystal
Mm,
Palace have been a no go at this point.
don't touch.
Don't touch. Yeah,
Yeah, don't touch. I think like it's I mean they've got Ipswich in game week 14, right? But they've got Arsenal in 13. So sorry, not Arsenal, Newcastle in 13. And yeah, I just don't know if I'd want to go for any Palace players at the moment. I feel like they're not quite hitting the groove at the moment as well.
mm. Yeah. Honestly, like, can't trust them. If you can't trust the team, I'm not going to touch them. Um,
No.
the other fixture obviously is Forest versus Ipswich. Now Forest, I think they took it a bit more relaxed against Arsenal, letting go in terms of a strong team or anything. I guess like manager went, just take a break, guys, and we'll focus on the
Yeah.
Ipswich fixture.
Yeah, like Wood being benched was I was honestly surprised, because I had a couple of people ask, "Oh, would you play Wood
Yeah.
against Arsenal?" And obviously Arsenal have been letting in goals, and they just go and keep a clean sheet against Forest. But yeah, I was really surprised. I was genuinely surprised. I thought he's just been so consistent. He's been on goal scoring form as well. Yeah, I was surprised to see that he got benched, but maybe his flight back from our region anyway was a bit challenging. Maybe I'm not sure, or maybe it was just a better fixture for our knee, to
Maybe.
play. So I'm not sure what happened there. But it's a really good fixture, right? Like those that have held on to Wood, they've probably held him on, for this Ipswich
Mm.
fixture.
Yeah, and anyone who has like Forest defense as well, I don't mind playing them this week because
That's
Forest
right.
at home are a better defensive team.
Yeah,
Um,
Absolutely, absolutely. But after that, I mean, they've got tougher fixtures. I mean, you could
Yeah,
argue again, City. Not sure. I feel like all the City dark reds or red
to be
probably needs
re-questioned.
to change.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
especially from like if you have an attacker playing against him, it probably needs to be rethought about it. Um, yeah, so I don't mind having Chris Wood and starting him this week. Forest
Yeah.
defense as well, the same. But after that, obviously, I think Forest defense might have to go because the fixtures aren't great.
No.
Ipswich, on the other hand, they played really well against United.
Mm,
But Liam Delap had so many chances that he probably should have put behind, which he didn't.
yeah,
Um, Now, obviously, anyone who has Leaf Davis from defensive point of view, they still have good fixtures. Like
they
Ipswich,
do.
they look on paper, it's like good, but clean
I
sheets,
agree.
yeah.
I agree. I think there's probably less clean sheet potential there. I mean, even against like Palace, you would expect Palace to get a goal as well. But I don't know. I feel like it's tough because Liam, like Delap, has been playing really, really well.
Mm,
So if you're holding on to Haaland and you're bringing in a Nisak, right, having a Delap, that you can bench occasionally and just have him there to play as well is a really good shout. But given most managers, a lot of managers, engaged managers are giving up, Haaland now, it means it opens up, bringing in slightly more expensive, forwards, or when I say expensive, anywhere between like 7 million upwards, right? And so Solanke's still got, I mean, Spurs have still got some good fixtures coming up. Like I got rid of Solanke, but against City. Spurs have still got some decent fixtures coming up as well. So yeah, so there's too many options there. But I think Delap is a hold if you have him. I wouldn't get rid of him, but
yeah,
I would think about bringing him in if you don't have Haaland as well. There's just so many other options now.
yeah, that's the thing. I don't mind having him. I know a few people who do have him. And the problem with Dilap is figuring out when to exactly play him as well. Like even in the easier fixtures, are you fully confident of starting him over? I guess it depends on who you have in your midfield. It's
Mm,
if you have a strong five midfield, then you probably don't have an issue. But if you have Rogers versus Dilap, that's like a 50-50 call. Flick a coin.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's why I guess I wouldn't necessarily sell. I mean, everyone's got different. They're in different positions, right? So again, if you're thinking about holding on to Haaland or having like an Isak and a Jackson up front or a Watkins or something like that, then having a slightly cheaper forward, I think. So is Delap around 5.5 mil? Is that right?
Yeah,
Like
similar to Joe
yeah,
Pedro price. That's the only thing that kind of like
that's tricky, right?
yeah,
So yeah, and then you got one. I mean, and this
5.6.
is where the
Yeah.
team comes. It comes down to the team and how well, as a whole, the team is playing, rather than the isolated, sort
Mm,
of player.
yep.
Um, yeah, it's
Yeah.
tough.
Indeed. I'll probably still go Joe Pedro.
Yeah,
Because of that.
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Arsenal, I guess, kept a clean sheet. Thank the Lord for my double Arsenal defense finally keeping one. But obviously they've got West Ham next. This is away from
Mm,
home. Now Saka obviously double-digit return. I was like, oh, I'll wait for 2 weeks before going for Saka. He's already gone and gotten a return. And then I was contemplating a -8, but I was like, no, let me wait a bit more, one more week before actually going back to get him.
yeah.
The thing is, West Ham is a very hard team to like tell what West Ham team is going to turn up per se.
True.
So I'll go without Saka for this one, but I'm very well capable of knowing that Saka can deliver. And like in a week where we're looking at captaincy and we're like, there are quite a few options available, but we're not fully certain on. There's no nailed specific captaincy, and I think Saka could also be in that captaincy consideration. Although away from home doesn't really help as much. But
Mm.
yeah, what do you think? Arsenal, double defense, double attack.
Yeah, I love it. I've only got one Arsenal player at the moment. I've got Gabriel. I think there was a point where I had three. So I had Havertz, and I've mentioned this a few times on my own show where I've had a love-hate relationship with Havertz, I've just taken him out on again, off again, on again, off again type of thing, and it's been a lot of fun, having him. But I will probably, if I do lean any particular way, just looking at Arsenal's fixtures, it would probably be double defense. So I'd be tempted to go Raya, like I'm just looking for the right opportunity, or even bring in like a Timber, something like that, especially with the funds that are getting freed up. I don't think I'd bring in double defense by game week 13. I mean, Saka will probably come into my team in game week 13, given, I've got 2 free transfers going into game week 13, taking out Haaland, frees up the funds. And so, yeah, one of those forwards that we talked about, and then probably Saka from Dibbling. Definitely a captaincy option. So I think to start with, I'll probably just have Gabriel and Saka. But given, 15 onwards, I mean, Arsenal play United at home at the Emirates. So, yeah, that's not obviously a tough, sorry, Ryan, not a
It is
tough
what it is.
fixture.
A new manager, you never know.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know if it's going to be like a clean sheet. I reckon United could probably score against Arsenal. But you've got 15 onwards where it screams a lot of clean sheet potential. So I think for that run between game week 15 to game week 20 even, which is United again. Oh, not United, so Brighton. You could probably say that there's at least 3-4 clean sheets there.
Yeah, probably will agree. Yeah, it is possible. So I don't mind I have double defense. I'm not going to go anywhere
You don't need
else.
to change.
No, I don't need to. I've suffered through owning them as well. So it's about time I got some returns. But Saka is the one that I kind of have to decide. So I might even bring Saka in game week 14 against United. Even though it might not be the optimal move, maybe, unless something else appears where I'm like, ooh, some shiny new toy, and I go there instead. But yeah, so something to kind of consider in terms of Arsenal options. Odegaard is also not a bad option, but obviously I think there are better FPL candidates from Arsenal, I would say.
I think so. I mean, I saw the longer highlights, Arsenal versus Forest, and gosh, Saka just looked so good. He was coming into the box so much, and he wasn't. I don't know. He just looked very on it and just on form and just attacking constantly. So, yeah, I think for me the priority would be Saka, especially if I can afford it. But I think it comes down to that additional midfield spot, right? So there is an opportunity as well to then, like the Brian Mbumo spot, like, is it actually ditch the double defense because yes, that's an option. Do you go for attack? Because again, those are easier fixtures as well. I think I remember like when Riotgate happened, I was thinking about the period when we didn't know if Raya was in the team or not, and that was around my game week 6 wildcard time, and I didn't end up going double Arsenal defense where they had a good fixture run for clean sheets, and this is where they stopped keeping clean sheets. So in some ways I feel like I got really lucky, like with the not being able to make a decision about Raya in the team or not, and so I decided not to go Raya, went Flecken instead, which is a whole other sort of issue, but he's my hero this week, so it's okay. But you could argue that maybe Brian Mbumo becomes Odegaard, for example, if you want to go attacking. He's looked really good as well, just being back in the team, just being that sort of primary creator as well. And so yeah, that's an option for sure as well.
Yeah, so we'll see how Arsenal do against West Ham, and then obviously West Ham will kind of wait and see what happens in terms of how they perform, and then game week 14. Probably wouldn't touch West Ham. I'll want to wait and see some consistency at the moment.
Yeah, same. I know Bowen looked good, and he got a goal, but yeah, I'm not sure there.
Chelsea versus Aston Villa. We've talked about Jackson, mentioned about Palmer, and also touched about Watkins and Rodgers. Aston Villa good fixtures, but defensively, people are looking for like Luka Dean and whatnot, and Konsa is now back. I probably wouldn't really go there, given that they can't keep clean sheets at the moment.
No, I feel like defenders at the moment, unless you're thinking about Arsenal or, I mean, even Liverpool have some in between. I mean, I'm thinking about maybe if it's not Timber that I bring in, for example, or like another Arsenal defender, do I bring in like a VVD, or Kanate even, I'm not sure. It's something, I'm definitely thinking about. But given there aren't many clean sheets being kept, I'd rather just not make that transfer and just have the team, like have Lewis still, have Robinson still. I've got Eight Nori, I've got Gabrielle, and I've got Greaves on the bench, who's just been sitting on my third bench for, God knows how long as well. So I'm almost tempted to just cut my losses there and go, you know what, that's a transfer that I don't need to make. I'm probably, whoever I bring in, if I bring in Consa, he's probably going to give me 0 points, 1 point, 2 points, something like that, right? So I just rather not, that transfer, I'm treating it like 4 points as
Yep.
well, like -4 points. So yeah, why make the transfer if there's no certainty there?
Yeah, indeed. I probably agree with that as well. And then obviously moving from there, we have United versus Everton. If you have Mazraoui, I don't mind playing him. I think Onana
Mm.
also, I've seen a few people having Onana, not a bad player to have in terms of a goalkeeper. Um, After that, I probably would wait and see in terms of who is going to play where system and whatnot. I think they're still trying to adjust. Um, Everyone who bought him Bruno Fernandes can keep him, but then the next three fixtures after that becomes harder. And that's kind of where I don't mind doing that switch as well for anyone who has Bruno to Saka as well. I think a lot of people will be thinking about that. And then come after the City game, maybe we know a bit more information in terms of which player becomes available.
Yeah, I'd like to hope so, because like they've got they should, they've got good fixtures, coming up after that as well. So yeah, I think that's fair to say. I mean, it's almost like you want to bring a player in like Mazarawi or Garnacho, where you can bench for some of the tougher fixtures and feel okay about benching as well. I feel like with João Pedro, you just can't bench him. Like, he's cheap, but you
Yeah,
just can't bench. Like, he could just go off, right? But yeah, I agree. I think for that Everton fixture, I am a little bit jealous not having a defensive option. I mean, Everton played a 10-player Brentford for majority of their match in game week 13, in game week 12 even, and they still couldn't score. So and Brentford have been super leaky
yeah,
as well. So I don't know. I feel like I've got a little bit of FOMO there, just not having an option there. But at the same time, you just don't know. I mean, Everton might just score. Who knows? They
that's
might
true.
sort of sort it out by then or something.
Yeah, that's true. You never know, but I don't mind having United defense for this one. That's all I'll
Yeah,
say.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree.
Now Spurs versus Fulham. If I'm getting Joe Pedro in, I had to get rid of Solanke. Because I
Mm,
even benched him this week. So that's how much of like faith I had in him. He did get a 5 pointer, but he was on my bench. But like I was like, I can't trust Spurs as a team anymore. Like
yeah.
I don't know what Spurs is gonna turn up. Like I played him for Ipswich, did nothing. They got beat, and now they batter City 4-0. I'm like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. Goodbye. And I've kind of sold Solanke as well. Now, obviously, you did mention like good fixtures are coming, but I don't know if I really want to go back again there because I just can't trust him.
I agree. I mean, I got rid of Solanke as well, and I got some returns out of Solanke, like when I brought him in, which was quite a few game weeks ago now. Again, I think I brought him in slightly earlier before he really sort of got going, and then he was just returning here and there. Nothing too sort of crazy where you feel like, oh, now I've got to hold him through the tougher fixtures, right? But for that price tag, I'm thinking if he's going to give me 5.6 points, I don't know. There's other options, right? Jackson's been a bit more explosive as well. Isak, obviously, for that little bit more as well, if you can afford it. I think it's sort of he's around that range where there are cheaper options like Cunha. You
Mm,
can go down lower, and then there's better options going up higher, and they're giving you more returns. So that's why I was like, I'm just going to cut my losses with Solanke. I imagine all of the algorithms would be really hot on Spurs at the moment, just because they have got a good run of fixtures coming up. So they've got Fulham, Bournemouth, Chelsea. I mean, Chelsea's will be an interesting,
Home
fixture.
game
But then
though.
they've got,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a home game. And then they've got Southampton after that. So, yeah, I would even say that if you've got Solanke and you don't have any other urgency, I would hold on to him now, right? Like, just maybe you would
Maybe
hold. I don't know. Fulham defensively are decent, but they also let in four
goal against Wolves.
goals.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, although Anderson was off, the pitch for quite a while, and well, for the remainder of the match when he came off. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I feel like with Tottenham's very similar to Villa and some of the other, like, who else did we talk about that is just West Ham? You just don't know what sort of Spurs are going to turn up. I mean, they've just won 4-0 against City, and then they lost the week before that. So
Yeah,
just
I can't deal with this inconsistency. I'm just like, yeah, I'm just gonna, you get your points. I don't care. I'm just gonna,
it's mind
yeah,
games. Yeah. And so I'm like, well, I can't subscribe to that. I just can't get on to, I don't want to feel that way about that team, about them. And so, yeah, like Porro as well, like so many managers took out triple Spurs or double Spurs that they had. I saw some managers take out Son, Solanke, and Porro against this, and I was like, how did that happen? Because yes, the City fixture on paper is tough, but there are some good fixtures coming up as well. So I get it, but also, yeah, I guess it's about the players that you're bringing in. But no, I wouldn't want to go there though. Again, I'm just like, it's too inconsistent for me.
Yeah, fair enough. Which is why I got rid of Rico Lewis as well, because I was like, can't deal with you anymore.
I still
not worth it.
have him. I still have him.
Take
I'm
a
just like,
-4.
well, it's not the most important. Again, it's not the most important transfer that I need to make. But yeah, I could take out Robinson or Rico Lewis to bring in like a Timber if I choose to go double Arsenal defense, or a Virgil van Dijk or something like that. So it's an option, but I'm like, no one's keeping clean sheets properly. So
But he's not even keeping clean. He's not even getting points. He's been getting zeros.
yeah,
which doesn't help.
I didn't even play him. I didn't even play him this week.
I started
couldn't.
Mikolenko, and then I benched him for Rico Lewis. I was like, maybe Rico Lewis will play midfield and maybe something. But no, never mind. So
No.
I rage transferred him out for a hit. Basically, that's what happened this week.
Too funny.
Yeah. Okay, so we kind of covered all the fixtures. Let's end it with captaincy. Where do you put the armband? Salah, because he's on form. Palmer, because it's Aston Villa, and we mentioned about Aston Villa conceding goals. Saka, obviously, at home. Away from home against another inconsistent West Ham team. Brentford, Mbeumo against Leicester, although new manager bounce could hit for Leicester.
There's so many options. So you're right. There's Saka, Salah, Son, if you still manage to hold on to Son. Palmer is an option. Isak is an option.
Cunha against Bournemouth.
Cunha, João Pedro against, it's an early fixture, I guess.
Gandhi might strike there, but yeah.
I'm not going to touch that. Like, it's just owning him is good at the moment. But even Bruno, if you've got Bruno as well against Everton, like if you still held him, then obviously a lot of managers brought him in for this 3-game week sort of run, especially. So yeah, there's way too many options. My captaincy at the moment is on Salah, just because he's proving a point. I like the psychological element of FPL and what could be going on, just the surrounding factors as well. I mean, I know these guys are like professionals, and they don't we'd like to think they don't let these types of things get into their head as well. But I think Liverpool have a point to prove. They have such a good opportunity to get ahead and have that 11-point just gap between them and City. Well, I don't even think it'll be City at that point anyway. So it's on Salah at the moment, but I think the other option for me is probably going to be Palmer against Palmer against Villa. Yeah, because it's a home fixture as well. So I think I'd be looking at the home fixtures for sure. So Isak is not an option. I mean, if I bring in Isak's not an option. So I'd be thinking about even Cunha. I think Cunha is a really good option. He's just on amazing form, but it is Bournemouth as well. So I'm not sure, because Bournemouth have been, whilst they've been letting in goals as well, I think that could be a little bit cagey. So I feel like maybe Cunha's not the best option. So yeah, look, I've got it on Salah at the moment. He's just really consistent, and yeah, I feel like if I could trust a player to get returns in the tougher fixtures as well, it's probably going to be Salah. But the second option is going to be Palmer.
Yeah, fair enough. For me, it's between those two at the moment. might keep it on Salah, but if I'm chasing rank, I think I might take the opportunity to go on Palm as well, because Palmer always has that explosive potential. And obviously, we mentioned Villa not keeping clean sheets as well. It is Champions League as well. They don't tend to do well after Champions League games, so we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how they go in their Champions League fixture.
That's the other factor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other factor. And I think that's the other reason why I'm leaning towards bringing in Jackson as well. Just because Chelsea could be quite rampant in that fixture too. But yeah. So that's where I'm leaning, at the moment. Not confident.
Yeah,
though.
fair enough. All right, we'll see how it goes. But that's basically it. Mira, anything to plug?
Just my own show. Yeah, I'm just sharing my FPL journey on my show called Off the Cuff. It's very sort of off the cuff and unprepared and, pretty chilled out as well. So I'm just sharing my FPL journey on there, and I'm doing pretty well this season. And yeah, it's been great having the engagement from the FPL community. So yeah, please do check me out on X or on Blue Sky as well. So I'm just FPL Mez8 on both of those, and also on YouTube.
Indeed, and you can find me Football Chatbox on YouTube and also now Blue Sky as well. And obviously, make sure to follow Mira as well, FPMS on her socials. And I'll see you all after Game Week 13. Looking ahead to both, I think, Game Week 14 and 15 as well. But thank you all for listening, and we'll see you all later.